Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? It's your boy, The Doc, and we're back for the Week 8 Injury Update Show. You guys know the deal. Every single week, I run through the entire NFL slate, tell you about all the injuries that you need to know about for your fantasy teams, and I give some predictions on if these guys are going to play or not to get you ready for the weekend. So let's get into it. Week 8 Injury Update Show. Let's go. All right, guys, normally we start with a moment of silence for any players whose injury will keep them out the rest of the fantasy season. Luckily, no major injuries in week 7 to talk about. Also, no teams on bye, so we got a big slate. We're going to start with Thursday Night Football. Bills getting a big win, but there were some injuries to talk about this week. Quarterback Baker Mayfield was dealing with a knee sprain, ended up playing and played okay. Pretty much everybody that you had in fantasy that you wanted to do well in this game did pretty well outside of maybe James Cook, but everybody else that you were expecting to put up points pretty much did. Chris Godwin had a neck injury coming to this game, got a touchdown, got some catches, a pretty solid game for him as well. As for the Bills, tight end Dawson Knox missed this game due to having wrist surgery on this wrist injury he's been dealing with for the last 2 weeks, and finally opted to have surgery on this injury. He's been placed on IR, is expected to miss about 4 weeks with this injury. Dalton Kincaid, another good game in his absence. Looks like a guy that you absolutely need to be throwing in your lineups each and every week at the tight end position. And then running back Damian Harris, we talked about him last week, had the neck and concussion issues, got stretchered off the field in an ambulance, was placed on IR after I recorded last week's video, so he is expected to miss about 4 games as well. Let's head into the early Sunday games. We got Texans at the Panthers, number 1 overall pick playing the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 draft at the quarterback position. Texans dealing with a couple injuries at wide receiver. Robert Woods has a foot injury, has not practiced yet, does not look like he is going to be able to play. Luckily for the Texans, wide receiver Tank Dell, dealing with that concussion, is back practicing in full. He should be able to suit up, has a decent matchup with him and Nico Collins, expecting to get most of the work for the Texans wide receiver group. As for the Panthers, they've got some guys coming back as well. Running back Miles Sanders dealing with shoulder and groin injuries. He's gotten full practices in so far, missed week 6, but the bye week helped him out, getting him back to those full practices. Expect him to start working in with Chuba Hubbard this week. Wide receiver Laviska Shenault has a high ankle sprain, has not practiced yet. Looks like he's going to miss this week as well as a few more weeks. Typically with a high ankle sprain, you're looking at about 3 to 6 weeks before they can come back. Heading over to the Rams at the Cowboys, Rams running back Kyron Williams has that high ankle sprain. He was placed on IR on Saturday last week after I recorded the injury show. He's expected to miss 3 more weeks minimum. As for the Cowboys, they don't really have any injuries to talk about, so we're going to head straight to the Vikings at the Packers. Vikings tight end TJ Hawkinson had a foot sprain in their game last week. Left Monday Night Football in the 4th quarter with the foot injury. Foot issues can be kind of tricky. He did get a limited practice in, and even though he is practicing on Thursday, the next 2 days are really going to tell us a lot as far as TJ Hawkinson's availability this week, but so far he is trending towards playing. As for the Packers, running back Aaron Jones still dealing with this hamstring strain that's kept him out for multiple weeks this year already. Didn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday. We've seen him continue to have kind of this modified practice schedule with this hamstring issue. Was hoping maybe he would be over that by now, but he does look like he's on pace to play again this week. More of a flex, low-end RB2 for me this week. As for wide receiver Christian Watson, he had a knee sprain. Got full practices in both days this week. A little bit surprising. Another week, another injury for Watson, but he looked like he was seriously hurt with this injury, was left the game, didn't come back. Already back to full practices. Look like he will be able to go. More of a boom bust wide receiver 3 for me this week. And then tight end Luke Musgrave is dealing with an ankle sprain. Hasn't practiced yet. Doesn't look like he is going to be able to come back this week. Heading over to the Saints at the Colts. Saints running back Alvin Kamara is sick, didn't practice Wednesday, limited on Thursday. He stepped right into a role similar to what he had with Drew Brees his last few years in the league. He's got a noodle arm quarterback that is checking the ball down to him a ton. He's a PPR monster right now and should continue to do so despite being a little bit under the weather this week. Tight end Juwan Johnson finally got a positive update with his calf strain, back practicing in a limited capacity. He's been missing multiple weeks already this year, but good to see him back practicing for the first time in about a month. He's going to be a game time decision, but is probably floating on your waivers if you're looking for tight end help. It looks like he's trending towards playing, even though he is a game time decision. As for the Colts, running back Zach Moss dealing with elbow and heel injuries. Didn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday. Multiple ailments going on right now. Looks like he is going to be able to play, but it does open the door up a bit wider for Jonathan Taylor to become a bell cow. Again, may have already taken his job back, honestly. 110 total yards and a touchdown last week. Jonathan Taylor looking to be the running back you want going forward, just like we kind of all expected. Cornerback Julius Brents has a quad strain. He hasn't practiced yet at all this week. Doesn't look like he's going to play for the Colts. And then tight end Kylan Granson has a concussion, hasn't practiced yet. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to suit up. Heading over to the Patriots at the Dolphins. Patriots tight end Hunter Henry has an ankle sprain, limited practices so far this week. Was a bit surprised to see him able to suit up last week, but back-to-back limited practices. Looks like he's going to be able to play again this week. As for the Dolphins, a lot of injuries on the offense right now. All their fast players are hurt right now. Wide receiver Tyreek Hill dealing with a hip injury. Didn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday. Popped up on the injury report, but he is calling this fake news that he's not actually that hurt, and him being limited on Thursday has me a little bit suspicious that maybe he's not being 100% truthful with us, but he said he plans on playing this week, and if he's playing, you have to throw him in your lineups. Wide receiver Jalen Waddle dealing with a back injury, limited practices so far this week, left and missed most of last week's game with a back injury. Not much was said about what he's actually dealing with. I think he may have gotten hit in the back, maybe dealing with some back spasms. If it's spasms, then it's just about making sure he doesn't have them again. He should be able to play, but he's a risky wide receiver 3 for me, knowing that we don't know a whole lot about what is causing this back issue. And then running back Raheem Mostert has an ankle injury. He didn't practice Wednesday, limited on Thursday. Reportedly picked this injury up in week 7. Didn't appear to affect his play really at all, so I'd expect him to be able to play this week, and he's another solid start. Heading over to the Jets at the Giants. Battle for New York City here. Jets have a couple injuries at the cornerback position. Actually had some guys hit us up in our Discord asking about these injuries. So if you want to have some say in players that I throw into this injury video, make sure you hit the join button, become a member of Headliner Nation, get on the Discord where you can get 24/7 access to all of the Headliner crew and myself, so you can ask injury questions to me every single day of the week if you so choose, and you might even get to tweak what I put on the show. But let's get back to the Jets. Cornerback Sauce Gardner dealing with a concussion. He's getting full practices in. He should be able to play. Same thing with DJ Reed for the Jets. Concussion, full practices. Expect both these guys back this week. As for the Giants, running back Saquon Barkley dealing with an elbow injury, limited practices so far this week. He's been dealing with an ankle sprain. Now he's got a hyperextended elbow. He's hurting, but I'd expect him to play through this injury. He should be fine once again. Quarterback Daniel Jones dealing with a neck strain, limited practices again this week, similar to what we saw last week, but Tyrod Taylor continues to play just well enough to keep Jones on the sideline. I do expect another week of Tyrod, even though Daniel Jones is practicing. Tight end Darren Waller dealing with a hamstring strain, limited practices, had his best game of the year last week and should finally be paying off for your fantasy teams. Still dealing with this hamstring injury, but he should be able to play through it. And then just a note, the Giants O-line, we've talked about them for a few weeks now. They are getting healthier as a whole. Andrew Thomas, John Michael Schmitz, Evan Neal, all three of these guys are practicing again. Much needed help for the Giants O-line. They could finally be getting healthy enough to put some solid numbers up for this offense, especially with Tyrod being willing to throw it a lot more often than Daniel Jones was. Next game, we got the Jaguars at the Steelers. Jaguars have a bye week coming up, but it doesn't look like anybody is very concerned as far as playing, except maybe Zay Jones. He has a knee injury, re-injured his knee in week 5, still not practicing. I don't expect him to play with the bye week coming up. Trevor Lawrence, dealing with that knee sprain, is still limited in practice with the knee injury, but he played through it on a short week last week. I think that there is a pretty good chance that he's going to be able to play in this game as well, even though he's going up against a tough matchup in that Steelers front seven. And then I'm going to talk about wide receiver Calvin Ridley. He's technically not hurt, but he's playing like he is, so I figured I'd just mention him. He's going to be playing, but I don't know how much you can trust Calvin Ridley right now. The dude just doesn't seem to be on the same page with Trevor Lawrence. As for the Steelers, wide receiver Deontay Johnson has a hamstring strain. Remember, he did miss some time, was placed on IR with a hamstring injury, didn't show up on the injury report on Wednesday, and then DNP on Thursday. We saw this actually last week with Pat Freiermuth, who did re-injure his hamstring, was placed on IR, worried about the same thing with Deontay Johnson. After already missing it, seems like he has had a setback with the hamstring. And based on that, I'm saying there's a pretty good chance that he misses this game. As for defensive tackle Cam Hayward, he's dealing with a groin strain. He had surgery on it to repair this injury way back in week 1. He is practicing again this week, has not been officially designated to return, but could be a big boost for this defensive front that's already pretty scary. Getting Cam Hayward back would be a big bump for that defensive line. Heading over to the Falcons at the Titans. Falcons, no major injuries, still finding ways to win games. Having great injury luck so far. Have not had to talk about the Falcons very often. I know that some people are asking about Bijan Robinson in the comments and in our Discord. A lot of people wondering what the heck is going on with Bijan. Reports are he had a headache. Has not been limited at all in practice. The league is investigating the Falcons. You can't just not play one of your best players, but it sounds like he literally just had a headache at the beginning of the day and just could not shake it in time to actually play. That's why we didn't really see him at all in week 7. I do think he will be back and have his normal number of snaps this week. As for the Titans, quarterback Ryan Tannehill, dealing with the high ankle sprain, hasn't practiced yet this week, had the exact same injury last year, caused him to miss games, then same thing this year. He's not playing this week. Rookie Will Levis getting the nod in his first NFL start. So if you're really desperate for quarterback, throw Levis in and be disappointed. As for wide receiver Treylon Burks, he has a knee sprain. Good bye week for him last week. Did wonders for him. He is back practicing in full. Looks like he's going to be able to play after missing the last month. And then running back Derrick Henry, no injury here, but just keep an eye on Derrick Henry in your lineups this week. The NFL trade deadline is coming up, and his name is getting brought up often. A lot of smoke here with Derrick Henry possibly being on the move. Tyjae Spears becomes a guy you want to pick up on waivers as a speculative ad, at least until the trade deadline passes. But if Derrick Henry were to be in serious trade conversations, don't be surprised if he is a late scratch on Sunday. So just keep that in mind if these rumors are true and he is in the trade discussions. Last game of the early slate, Eagles at the Commanders. Eagles cornerback Bradley Roby has a pec strain, hasn't practiced at all this week. Initial reports were that they were fearing that he had torn his pec, but the MRI results revealed a less severe strain. He's expected to be sidelined this week, but should be able to play again this year. And then as for the Commanders, linebacker Cody Barton, only injury that really has any concern on this game. High ankle sprain, hasn't practiced yet this week. He is the Commanders' leading tackler thus far through the season, but this high ankle sprain looks like it's going to keep him out this week. The Commanders did give up over 100 total yards and a touchdown to a hobbled Saquon Barkley last week, so I'm expecting a big week from DeAndre Swift. All right, let's head into the midday slate. First up, we got the Browns at the Seahawks, the most injured game of the week. 35 different players on the injury report between these two teams. Let's start with the Browns. All about the offense here. Quarterback Deshaun Watson has the micro tear in his rotator cuff. Didn't practice at all this week. The team's already said they plan on rehabbing him this week, and PJ Walker is going to get the start, and they should, because he dropped a negative fantasy point total in his first attempt back. This is looking like an absolute disaster scenario for Deshaun Watson and the Browns. But that's not the only issue they have on the offense. 2 running backs dealing with injuries. Running back Jerome Ford has an ankle sprain. Didn't practice at all yet this week. It looks like he is going to miss this game. But running back Kareem Hunt has the thigh injury that kept him limited last week. Didn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday. Same trajectory that he was on last week before being a game-time decision and ultimately playing. I'd expect him to do the same this week. Tight end David Njoku has a knee injury. Didn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday. Should play this week and is coming off his best week of the season. 5 catches, 54 yards. Still no touchdowns for David Njoku. Hopefully he can get in the end zone soon if you're starting him every week. As for the Seahawks, running back Zach Charbonnet dealing with that hamstring strain. Limited practice Wednesday, full practice on Thursday. Missed last week, but is going to be able to play just in time because Kenneth Walker also has a calf strain and has not practiced yet this week, trending towards not playing. The Seahawks have been conservative with injuries, and I'd expect them to sit their star running back if he's still hurting on Sunday. As for conservative, let's talk about wide receiver DK Metcalf missing his first NFL game due to injury in Week 7. Luckily, he's back practicing in full, and the team could be looking his way often because wide receiver Tyler Lockett has a hamstring strain, has not practiced yet this week, ultimately played through the same issue last week. So it's possible they're just giving the vet a lot of rest. But if there is a chance that he isn't able to go, and is a true game time decision that ultimately sits, the team has 2 good wide receivers to fill in for him right now if they need some rest. Jackson Smith-Njigba, first overall rookie pick for them this year, and then surprise rookie Jake Bobo. Both of those guys coming off their best weeks of the year last week. And then linebacker Bobby Wagner on the defensive side has an ankle sprain. Didn't practice at all yet this week. Looks like he is expected to miss as well. Heading over to the Ravens at the Cardinals. Ravens wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. showed up on the injury report on Thursday with a shoulder injury, was limited. Surprise downgrade for him. Had a modest showing against Detroit, 5 for 49 yards, but the team dropped 38 points, so he's still not being used quite as often as you'd like him to if you're starting him. Hopefully you're not. As for the Cardinals, quarterback Kyler Murray, coming off that ACL tear last year, could be on the verge of a true quarterback controversy mid-season here because technically Kyler Murray is no longer being listed on the injury report, but hasn't, as of this recording, been activated to come off the IR and play in this game. Have to wonder if the team is keeping him out on purpose or if they're just being extra careful with the star quarterback for the Cardinals. Technically, I'm going to put him as a game time decision, but I'd be surprised if he played. Chiefs at the Broncos. Chiefs linebacker Nick Bolton has a wrist dislocation. Hasn't practiced yet this week. Potentially a big blow as their linebacker is expected to miss about 6 to 8 weeks after having surgery on the dislocated wrist. As of this recording, he hasn't been placed on IR yet, but I do expect that will happen given this timeline. And the Broncos are pretty healthy. Hopefully they will stay that way heading into their bye week next week. Moving on to the Bengals at the 49ers, the last game of the midday slate and probably the best game of the week, if I'm being honest. The Bengals are pretty healthy, no major injuries to talk about. The Niners, just offense as a whole, a little banged up. Deebo Samuel dealing with that shoulder sprain, hasn't practiced yet this week, missed week 7. The team's already said publicly that they're going to reassess him after the team's bye week next week, so don't expect Deebo Samuel back this week. Quarterback Brock Purdy has a concussion. Didn't practice on Wednesday, limited on Thursday, was placed in concussion protocol after the team's loss on Monday night. Interesting to note, though, that he threw 2 very uncharacteristic interceptions at the end of that game that ultimately led them to lose to the Vikings. Have to wonder when exactly this concussion occurred. He finished the game, got put on concussion protocol afterwards, but he did get limited work in on Thursday. If you're planning on starting Brock Purdy, Just keep an eye on his status over the next 2 days. Only about 25% of players are able to return the same week as a concussion, and a Monday night injury is even more unlikely for him to be able to come back. He's a true game time decision this week. And then running back Christian McCaffrey has that oblique tear, small tear described by the team. Full practices this week. If you took the gamble and waited until Monday night to see what would happen with CMC, you were, of course, rewarded with another huge game for him. This week, practicing in full, I expect him to be a full go for this Bengals matchup. Let's head into Sunday night football. We got Bears at the Chargers. Bears quarterback Justin Fields dealing with that thumb dislocation from a couple weeks ago. Hasn't practiced yet. Doesn't look like we're any closer with him starting. Another start for Tyler Bagent, Teabag, whatever you want to call the guy, he's going to be starting again for the Bears. And then running back Roschon Johnson, coming off the concussion, got full practices in this week. He should be back. For the Chargers, wide receiver Joshua Palmer has a knee sprain, hasn't practiced yet this week. Another year of Justin Herbert slowly losing all of his wide receiver weapons due to injury. First, it was Mike Williams, who, slight update, did have successful surgery this week for his ACL tear. Now it's Josh Palmer, who actually led the team in receiving in Week 7, 133 yards. Needs to get some work in either on Friday or Saturday to have a shot at playing. But I'm here to make projections, and right now I'm going to say he's not going to be able to suit up. So another opportunity for Quentin Johnson to show that he was definitely worth a first-round pick for the Chargers this year. And then running back Austin Eckler, he's dealing with that high ankle sprain. Full practices this week, has been playing. But the problem with high ankle sprains is that players that have them don't typically stop playing after they come back, even though their production dips significantly after they come back. So Austin Eckler, if you've been disappointed with him so far, just know it takes a little bit of time for these players to come back from this high ankle sprain, even if they're playing. I'm actually targeting Austin Eckler in some trades if I have a guy that is playing him every week getting disappointed or maybe is losing a lot. I'm maybe trying to throw a guy that's throwing some solid production at that guy in my league and seeing if I can't get Austin Eckler on the cheap with him disappointing thus far coming back from that high ankle sprain. Let's end into the last game of the week, Monday Night Football. We got Raiders at the Lions, who are heading into their bye week next week. Raiders quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo dealing with a back injury. Reports are that he avoided disaster with this injury, and the team has said they're hoping that he can play this week. But I'm just not one for hoping on a Monday night player of Jimmy Garoppolo's caliber. This is not CMC. You're not holding out for Jimmy Garoppolo to play. I'd just find a replacement for him. He's going to be a game time decision. And then as for the Lions running back, David Montgomery has a rib cartilage injury. Some reports now that it's multiple rib injuries with this particular issue. Hasn't practiced yet this week, but of course it was just a walkthrough. But a DNP practice on Thursday coming into a Monday night game. I don't expect him to play in this game. Worth considering that the team also has a bye next week. Even more reason for David Montgomery to sit this week. Another heavy week incoming for Jahmyr Gibbs. And I do think we might see Demont back in week 10 after the bye week. All right, guys, that's it for the Week 8 injury update show. Make sure that you leave any comments of players that I missed or that you want me to talk about. I try to pin a comment to this video on Friday or Saturday later in the days so that we can get some updates if big news breaks. So please check the pinned comment on this video. If you're looking for a specific guy, I may have already mentioned them in that comment, but still leave any comments, any suggestions you have for this show. I will take them. I try to answer as many questions as I can as well. Of course, we want to thank our sponsors over at Manscaped. Use code HEADLINERS. Get 20% off. Almost said 50. Manscaped would have been mad at us if I'd have done that. 20% off plus free shipping from our boys at Manscaped. Christmas just around the corner. A great gift for yourself and for your lady friends. Use the code Headliners. Of course, when you're signing up for Pristine Auction, Jake giving away all sorts of cool swag this year from Pristine Auction. Sign up for a free account. Use the code Headliners. Let them know that we sent you. And of course, if we're playing some weekly fantasy games, make sure you head over to our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Use the code Headliners. Get a free first deposit match up to $100. It helps the channel out a ton when you help our sponsors out. Headliner Nation helps those that help us, and we appreciate each and every one of you guys. Like I said earlier, if you want to be a part of the exclusive Headliner Nation Discord, hit the join button, become a member, become a part of Headliner Nation. It's the best way to get up-to-date injury info from yours truly each and every week, especially those Sunday morning updates. I'm dropping those things bright and early before you even wake up, so you don't have to be sifting through any injury details on your Sunday morning. You just, get some coffee, pop open the Discord, and see the updates roll in from yours truly. But I appreciate all you guys. This week's injury show has been a great one, and the doc is out.